This video was sponsored by Squarespace.
Let's talk about my favorite books of all time. Hello friends, family, and intimate reading associates. Today, that's right, we're going to be talking about my favorite books of all time. Again. I did this last year. A lot of you who have been longtime viewers of this channel, you'll see a lot of recurring titles on here, but you'll also see some brand new titles. I'm constantly thinking about my favorite books, and so it only felt right to do an updated version 2025 of my 10 favorite books that I've ever read in my entire life. Disclaimer, before we get into it, I know videos like this tend to bring out the trolls. There will be some people in the comments that look at this list and go, ew, that's disgusting. You read awful books. And then there's going to be some of you that are very, very kind. And so I thank you now. Thank you for being so gracious to me in the comments. At the end of the day, folks, reading is subjective. Everyone's entitled to the right to their own opinion. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the top 10. Watership Down by Richard Adams. Watership Down by Richard Adams is by all rights a classic. But not just any kind of classic. It is classic fantasy. And the reason being for that is, well, most characters, actually every single character in this book is not a human. They're rabbits, or some kind of talking animal. A group of rabbits flees their warren when their home is threatened by industrialization. They flee to find a brand new home of their own. Along the way, they face predators, environmental threats, and other rival warrens of rabbits. This book goes so deep on its social commentary. There's even a little bit of commentary on World War II kind of strung along throughout this narrative. It's one of the most beautiful stories ever written with some of the most whimsical characters you'll ever run into, like Hazel and Fiver and Bigwig. But above all of that, it's a superbly profound novel that explores what it truly means to survive in a world where you are not at the top of the food chain. Now, why should you read this book? I don't see a lot of people talking about this on BookTube. And if they do talk about it, they probably talk about the 1970s cartoon movie, which is probably the most disturbing movie I've ever seen in my entire life. But I don't see BookTube as a whole embracing this novel, and honestly, that's a shame. I would love it if this book got more mainstream love on the creator side of things, because it's that good. Just for the world building alone, the fact that Richard Adams crafted an entire lore surrounding rabbits and their almost pseudo-religion and their ancestry and how they tie themselves all the way back to the first rabbit, it is a brilliant undertaking for what seems to be just a child's story. But, of course, I would say it's much more than that. That is why Richard Adams' Watership Down earns the 10th spot on this list. A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This book is the book that single-handedly got me back into reading fiction. At the time that I discovered this beauty, I was a non-fiction exclusive reader. I thought fiction was for children. I thought it was for people that were immature. I soon closed my mouth and changed my ways once I read this book. This book is the epic story of a world thrown into chaos when a king dies and noble families vie for control of the Iron Throne. We follow specifically one of these noble families known as the Starks, and their struggle for survival, stay together, and ultimately the things that break them apart. Even though this is a postmodern mess of a series, this book holds near and dear in my heart. I'd never read characters like this before. I'd never read prose like this before. And to be honest, to this day, I still think George R.R. Martin has my favorite dialogue of any author I've ever read. He just has the best, most brilliant dialogue between characters. It's almost as if he has been a fly on the wall in rooms of state where very important things are being discussed between very powerful individuals. This book shines forth like a freaking burning beacon among the epic fantasy genre. Now everything that's come after it since 1996 tries to copy this formula, and to be honest, none of them do a really good job of getting even close. So why should everybody read it? Some of the main reasons is, again, the characters. You won't find characters like this anywhere else. George has the ability to write the most striking characters. You either really love his characters or you really hate his characters. And the thing is, he's so good at writing dastardly, wicked, villainous individuals like nobody else. At the same time, it's the dialogue. You'll be so impressed by what these characters say and how everybody seems to try to be 10 steps ahead of the other when really no one's ahead of the game. And because of how impactful this book was on an entire genre, and then eventually when the show got created, it still to this day is the biggest TV show in television history. So it not only penetrated into a genre, but it penetrated into the culture, got everybody thinking about fantasy again, and for that reason, reason it's number 9 on this list. The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Now, long-standing viewers of this channel are probably going, Ian, last year you said this was the greatest book you'd ever read in your entire life. I did say that, didn't I? I think at the time that I read it, it absolutely was. But it's been nearly 6 months since I read this book, and I've thought about it since. It is definitely one of the greatest books I've ever read, and I certainly think it is one of the greatest books, if not the greatest book ever written. However, it's low on this list because the more that I think about it, the more I realize I think I like other stories better. This is number 8, and there's 7 more books to talk about, so there's at least 7 other stories that I think I enjoy more. This is a murder mystery set in 19th century Russia. The patriarch of this family, known as Fyodor Pavlovich, is murdered. His 3 sons, Dmitri, Ivan, and Alyosha, are the prime suspects in this murder. This book is much, much, much more than that, though. This book is equal parts murder mystery and philosophy. Dostoevsky, being one of the great Russian thinkers of his day, tended to weave philosophical and existential questions and themes all throughout his novels. This book not only explores, of course, murder, it explores themes like faith and doubt, the nature and relationship between good and evil, the nature of God, the existence of God, and ultimately, it tries to answer the question to the meaning of life. This book is so deep and rich and profound in so many beautiful truths, and so many great thinkers throughout history have said that this is their favorite book ever written. People like Einstein, people like Friedrich Nietzsche, people like Sigmund Freud, people that not only were great intellectuals, but people that absolutely changed the world. And a lot of them said that this is their favorite book of all time. So that alone should make you think, I should read this. But why should you read The Brothers Karamazov? 2 chapters stick out in my mind. One is Ivan Faces the Devil. That chapter is so gritty and so dark, but the conversation that Ivan has with this character that we can assume might be the devil is so gut-wrenchingly powerful. I had to read it like 4 or 5 times. It is so profound, the things that are discussed. But above all, everybody needs to read this book because of another chapter known as The Grand Inquisitor. This is an epic poem written by one of the characters of this novel. When I came across it, I probably read it 20, 25 times. That chapter alone changed my life. It changed my life. It changed who I was as a person. And I have no doubt that this book could do that for everybody. If you give it the time, you will walk away completely changed. Just let the characters do their thing. Just let Dostoevsky take you away and make you think about things that you may not have thought about before. I guarantee it'll change your life, and that is why this book is coming in at number 8.
But before we continue,
I need to talk to you about today's sponsor,
Squarespace.
Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs and those looking to build their dream website online. They have hundreds of layout options and absolutely everything is customizable. Squarespace makes it so incredibly easy to engage with your audience, while simultaneously making it so much easier to sell whatever kind of content and or products you're promoting online. It's all in one place and it's all on your terms. Squarespace's new Design AI empowers you to create a perfect, beautiful, and bold website with everything that you're looking for, all with just a click of a button. If you're interested in giving Squarespace a shot, head on over to squarespace.com or head on over to squarespace.com/Ian Gubeli to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Back to the top 10. Recursion by Blake Crouch. Oh my gosh. Recursion by Blake Crouch. This is a science fiction thriller. Blake Crouch is hands down my favorite thriller author because he merges real science with thriller writing. This book delves into the consequences of time travel and memory manipulation. On one hand, we're following Barry Sutton, who is a detective in New York, who's investigating this strange disease known as FMS, or false memory syndrome. People are starting to develop memories of a life that they never lived, and some of these memories are driving people to commit, well, let's just say it's driving them crazy. And then on the other hand, we're following Helena Smith, who is a neuroscientist. She's in the process of developing technology that could potentially bring back memories to patients and victims of Alzheimer's disease. This book is a non-stop, action-packed thrill ride that makes you ask some of the deepest questions you will ever pose to yourself. Blake Crouch somehow is able to do all of this in like less than 330 pages. Usually with a thriller, the stakes are like people's lives or whatever. The stakes in this book are the literal fabric of time and space. This book was, again, one of those like mind-bending, life-altering novels when I read it. Every time I read a Blake Crouch book, it just raises the bar for what I expect from thrillers, and it also raises the bar from what I expect from science fiction. And he blends the two genres seamlessly together. He's just so freaking brilliant. But why should you read Recursion in the first place? You should read Recursion because I said so. Everyone should read this book because the characters are in a struggle for something that is so real and so important. The plot alone will just blow your freaking mind. I love Helena and I love Barry so much. And for that reason alone, this makes the number 7 spot on this list. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I freaking love this book. Okay, this will always probably be in this top 10. Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove is the story of 2 retired Texas Rangers, Gus McCrae and Woodrow Call, as they embark on an epic journey from the Texas-Mexico border all the way to the uninhabited Montana territory. Holy crap. I did not know that a book about a cattle drive could be so intense. And at the same time, so amazing. This is one of the greatest stories ever told. It won a Pulitzer for a freaking reason, okay? The historical fiction aspect of this book, it's superb. But the thing that Larry does best is his characters. His characters are so real and they're so relatable. They're some of the most lovable people you'll ever read in fiction. Gus McCrae alone will raise the bar for what you expect from characters, from authors. Like, he is a powerhouse of a character. He does what he wants, he says what he wants, and nobody's stopping him except Woodrow, his best friend, right? But this book is so powerful because it's exploring the West at a time that was so wild. You fight Indian tribes, you fight bandits, and they fight each other, and there's found family, and there's love. I mean, some of the best romance I've ever read is in this book. In this book, I tell you, his writing is so unique. But why should you read it? Because the characters will change your life. And you will fall in love with all of these people. And your heart will be broken when some of them are lost along the way. You will come to the end with these lovable people and realize, man, my life will never be the same after experiencing this book, right? There is something so special and so beloved about this book. It's thick, it's long, but Larry will not disappoint you. He will never disappoint you. And that's why this book is at number 6. The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. I discovered Pat Conroy back in the fall of 2023, and I've been obsessed ever since. He quickly became one of my favorite authors of all time. And it's so funny, I read this book on a whim because I actually purchased another book that will remain nameless. The blurb on the cover said that that was that particular author's The Prince of Tides. And I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty big compliment, whatever The Prince of Tides is. So I looked it up and I found an audiobook and I just decided to listen to it on a whim. When I tell you, my life was changed, it's an understatement. The Prince of Tides is the freaking family saga about the Wingo family through about 40 years of their lives. And we particularly focus on the relationship of the twins, Tom and Savannah. Now, Tom is the actual narrator of the story, so we get everything through the lens of Tom as he is telling this story to a therapist in the hopes of saving his sister's life. We followed this freaking family through love, also through a lot of darkness. This book has many trigger warnings. We follow these poor children as they grow up in a very traumatic environment. He is an author that does not shy away from dark themes and really harrowing experiences to his characters. And this book has one of the most harrowing experiences I think I've ever read. Not many authors can touch sensitive topics with so much tenderness like Pat Conroy can. But above all, he has the most eloquent prose I've ever read in any author ever. Like, he is my favorite prose writer, hands down. He's a master craftsman when it comes to wordplay. He almost makes the South feel like a character in itself. He's so well spoken. So why should you read it? Because Pat Conroy deserves more love on BookTube. Am I the only one who's talking about him? Pat just needs more love in the book community. Like, where are you guys? Pick up his books right now. You will not regret it. And if you don't want to read a big chunky book like this, pick up South Abroad. It's just as good. It's just as good. I could go on a rant all day long. Pick up his freaking books. You will see what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not leading you astray. Shogun by James Clavell. Oh my gosh, what a beast. It is the epic story of John Blackthorne and his crew as they are marooned in 17th century feudal Japan. Yes, ladies and gents, this book is about samurai. The clash of cultures that this book is nothing short of majestic. This is a masterpiece of historical fiction. It is the greatest piece of historical fiction I've ever read in my entire life. How all of these cultures are vying for control of the islands of Japan and how they're fighting for supremacy amongst each other. But there's not just racial tensions and cultural tensions, there's religious tensions as well. And this book just explores so much. It is violent, it is gritty, it's beautiful. Dude, it is a surprisingly fast read for how big it is. It's more epic than some epic fantasy. Like fantasy readers, think about the most epic story you've ever read. It absolutely gets crushed by this book. There's only one book that's more epic than this, and it's coming up on this list. But it's also not what you're expecting. If you're thinking that this book is about samurai and they're all just pulling out their katanas and slicing people's heads off and cutting people in half, sure, that happens, but that is not the entirety of the book. In fact, it's like a small percentage. So why should you read it? You will never read character relationships quite like this. How enemies could become friends and friends could become enemies, and those who would have no chance with each other became lovers. Like literally the most complex and intricate character relationships I've ever read in any book. And yet, throughout the course of its 1,299 pages, Clavell astounds you as he continues to build these character relationships. These people are what make this story so amazing. Truly, you'll never read anything like it ever again once you read this book. Okay, top 3. These will probably be no surprise to anyone who's followed this channel for a very long time. The order's changed slightly, but number 3, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. What to say about this book that hasn't already been said? What could I possibly add to the mountain of accolades that this book has received? The story about Frodo Baggins and his fellowship as they embark on the daring quest to destroy the Ring of Power before the Lord Sauron could get his hands on it and destroy the world. That's just talking about it lightly. There is so much more to unpack. This book is the reason modern fantasy exists in any medium. You don't have modern fantasy TV shows, you don't have modern fantasy video games, you don't have modern fantasy books, any capacity without this bad boy. J.R.R. Tolkien completely changed the literary landscape forever when he released this magnum opus of fiction. I still compare everything that I read in fantasy to this book. Fantasy had never seen world building like this, how fantasy had never seen languages developed like this, how these characters are some of the most famous characters in literature history. Everybody knows who Bilbo Baggins is, everybody knows who Frodo Baggins is, everybody knows who Gandalf the frickin' Grey is. And the fact that they're still with us, they're still in our hearts 70 years later. This is the most epic story ever written. This is the book. The word epic in the dictionary has a picture of J.R.R. Tolkien's freaking face on this book. So why should you read it? Never before have you ever seen imagination quite like this. For those of you who have read it, you understand it. For those of you who haven't, you are missing out. This is a classic among classics. And it's one of the greatest classics ever written. And it's one of the greatest books ever written. It's one of the greatest stories ever told. And nobody can change my mind on that. I know a lot of people think this is outdated, but maybe you're outdated. What more do I need to say? Okay. The top 2. I couldn't decide which one I wanted above the other. We're just gonna go on how I put them in the stack. Hear me now, like actually hear me, viewers. These books could be in any order. I'm not putting one above the other. These are interchangeable to me, I don't care. I know just a fraction of you are gonna get a little upset that I'm talking about one of these books before I talk about the other. So just keep this in mind, that both of these are number 1 and both of these are number 2. Here we go. Number 2, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. This is the greatest classic novel of all time. Let me say it again. This is the greatest classic ever. This is the story of Edmond Dantes and his false imprisonment for a crime that he did not commit. And upon his escape, he vows to take vengeance on those that ruined his life. The Count of Monte Cristo is the ultimate revenge story. Everything you've heard about this book is true. But the thing is, this book is not just about vengeance. It's also about how a man can go from being so virtuous and how over time, how this man can deteriorate and be broken down into his base nature of evil and cruel and and vindictive. But at the same time, this book is also about forgiveness. And what does it mean to forgive? What does it look like? This book shows that we cannot be good judges of what true justice is. What does true justice look like? It doesn't look like some of the things that Edmund gets away with in this book. I was shocked to my core at the lengths that the Count of Monte Cristo is willing to go to enact his revenge. It's so deep, it's so rich, it's so profound in its exploration of the human condition with some of the most memorable characters you will ever read in your entire life. It is a commitment, but a commitment that's absolutely worth it. So why should you read it? Because it's the Count of frickin' Monte Cristo. That's why. Everybody knows that they need to read this book, and everybody has a desire to read this book. Just do it. I put it off for far too long. I would recommend getting the unabridged version. Don't get an abridged version. Your life will be gifted with so much. Read the Count of Monte Cristo because it's the Count of Monte Cristo. Number 2, baby. You long-standing viewers of the channel know exactly where I'm going with this. Number 1. The Stand by Stephen King. You all knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. I know some of you literary fiction people and classic people in the comments are going, "What? No! Where's Moby Dick?" I don't care. This is The Stand and I love it. Stephen King is my favorite author. For those of you new to the channel, every book that I've read of his has just been a gold mine. And The Stand is one of his many magnum opus. He has several. This is one of those. Stephen King's epic, post-apocalyptic dystopian story about a virus that kills 99.9% of the world's population, and the people that are left are then subject to dreams that draw them to certain locations across the continent of North America. The story ultimately comes down to the battle for good and evil. And it's still so much more when you stop to think about the connections that this book has to Stephen King's broader multiverse of his entire collected works. Everything that he's ever written ties directly to this thing known as the Dark Tower. This book has a direct tie to the Dark Tower series. It's so good. It's so good. It's some of King's best characters. It's some of King's best plotting. It's some of King's best structure. Is there some fluff in there? Absolutely. Again, this is an unabridged version. This is what's known as the uncut version. There is an abridged version that is about 500 pages less. And I think this is a perfect story from beginning to end. When I try to stop and think of like the greatest book I've ever read, this always sticks in my mind just as much as the Count of Monte Cristo. This is the absolute best. Like, I can't think of anything else. And it shares the 1 and 2 spot with the Count of Monte Cristo because I feel the exact same about them. The Stand is just so insanely good. And Stephen King is just a master storyteller. He can write in any genre, in any format, and in any way, and it will be a pure gold standard book. The fact that this is his 4th novel? What? How? So why should you read it? Because if there's one author that's going to give you the greatest experience with reading, it's Stephen King. He has so many books to dive into. It is so important to understanding Stephen King and understanding Stephen King's lore and his world and everything that he's crafted over his 6 decades of writing, right? Well, probably less than, I don't know. When it comes to dystopian stories and post-apocalyptic stories, it's the greatest of all time. Now, there's gonna be folks coming in this comment section saying, "Ian, if you like The Stand, you should read Robert McCammon's Swan Song." I have read Swan Song, and I really like it. But to me, The Stand blows Swan Song out of the water. So there's my answer on that. Have at it in the comments like wild dogs. But this one stands the testament of time. Every time I read a really good book, I think, it wasn't The Stand though. Now, these are my favorite books that I've ever read in my entire life. They're all unique. They're all perfect in my eyes. I love every single one of them. And I urge you, if you've not read a single one of these, or if you're wanting to read some of these, just do it. This is the video that's convincing you right now. Read these freaking books. You will not be disappointed. And if you are, I'm sorry. Again, reading is subjective, so there's nothing I can do about your taste. There's nothing you can do about my taste. I would say this is a pretty broad taste, right? There's science fiction, there's fantasy, there's dark fantasy, there's historical fiction, there's classics, we got everything, right? If you're new to the channel, this is the taste you can expect. So welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. If you're interested in Squarespace, head on over to squarespace.com to try your free trial, or head on over to squarespace.com/IanGubeli to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, folks. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one.